All right, let's get started today with a Apple Podcast review. So I've been excited to read this one for a while. We have JoJo Rankin. I have no idea where you came up with that name or who this is, but JoJo, we appreciate you so much. So your Apple Podcast review it says, Christian Dad is so good. This is such a powerful mission. Thank you for putting this podcast together. Excited to listen to more. So, thank you, JoJo. Hopefully, we jump up in the ranks week after week. I appreciate all the listeners and everybody who's been rating and reviewing the podcast. So, just super excited. All the words of encouragement and specific things men have been sending me, telling me their stories and how listening to the podcast has helped them in their journey to be a better Christian dad and be a leader in their household. So, with that said, let's jump into it. We've got a fantastic guest today. He is a husband, he is a father, he's a Christian, he's a life coach, and also found a calling in FBI dads. When I ran across Ryan Roy, I'm like, dude, FBI dads, are you kidding me? This is awesome. I've got to talk to this guy and figure out what this is about. And come to find out, the story's tremendous. And I just love how it's grown from a very humble beginning for Ryan. And he's taken it and he's in the process of just blowing it up. But taking it from that local level. And we'll get into it here in a second and you'll hear. But Ryan, welcome to the show. So happy to have you.
Hey, Dan, thank you so much for for having me on the show. I'm really excited to share the story, and let's jump into this. I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. So you're married. You've been married for 10 years. Lisa's your wife's name. You've also got kids. You know, this is a dad show. So Christian and Jaden. Christian's 9, Jaden's 3.
But
So
yeah, and if you knew them, you would think it was the other way around because Jaden thinks he's the boss. But yeah, it's
yes, yes. So does my youngest. Oh, last night we were cleaning my office and I'm like, hey, or organizing my office. And I says, hey, I'd like to do these here. And these are super important because that's my list for tomorrow. I'm going to start working off of. And she says, okay. All right. So dad, these here, I'm going to put them over here and I'm going to do that. I said, no, those are the ones. She said, no, dad, that doesn't look nice there. We've got to do it this way. And sure enough, she just went, I'm like, oh, office is organized. I just got to pay attention to where she's putting my to-do list for
My wife
next
used to
day.
do that. I banned her from my office, like 7 years ago. She goes, "It's not organized." I says, "Organized the way I know. When you organize it, I don't know where anything is."
That's right. Yes, absolutely. I'm like, put anything you want wherever you want, but not these 7 papers. I'm going to put those where I want, Dad. Okay, 7-year-old, do what you need to do. Oh my gosh, it's funny how even the simplest things us dads can connect on it and relate. So
Yep.
you your story starts out with uh your dad kind of leaving it at a young age. You were 5 years old and your dad kind of separated from your life. And then, as I hear from a lot of dads, you became a dad or in the process of becoming a dad, you're like, oh no, I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Yeah. So, as I tell the story, I was abandoned by my father at age 5. It it was about a week before Christmas that year, and my parents had already been separated. Dad had me during the week. Mom had me on the weekend. I happened to be at mom's that weekend, and I was sharing with mom, "Hey, you know, these are the presents I want Santa to bring at dad's house, and these are the presents I want Santa to bring here because I was a good kid, right? So I'm getting double
Right.
Christmas."
Yeah. Yeah.
And mom at the time, she says, "Well, I need to share something with you." And that's when she shared with me I'd no longer be going back to my father's house.
Oh,
And I think in that moment she reassured me, Dan, that but but be rest assured Santa's going to bring all the presents to mom's house. And I think that was her way of comforting me. Now I've done a lot of personal development and some therapy around this, and one of the people asked me, "So what was your reaction in that moment?" And I said, "I think I was just strong for mom."
mm,
And that's no burden any 5-year old should ever have to take on. And then he asked me, how does that play out in your life today? And it's still a struggle. I think of it as a good thing, right? I have empathy for a lot of people, and I want to help a lot of people. But even to this day, I struggle with, taking on other people's stuff and being strong for them. Um, so it's an evolution. I'm growing into, something else, but, growing up without a father, uh, can be difficult, right? There's a lot of questions a young man has, how do I, and getting a little bit older, like nobody taught me how to drive a car. Mom was working really hard, and nobody taught me how to shave, right?
Right.
Nobody dropped me off at college or went and visited colleges with me. Nobody filled those papers out with me. I had to figure it all out myself. So it was challenging in a lot of ways. So much so that into early adulthood, I made a conscious effort that I didn't want to be a dad. Not that I didn't think I would be a good one, um, but I had come from a broken home, right? Mom and dad weren't together. And I could honestly say that I wasn't the best at relationships at the time, right? I didn't have
Right.
a model for it. And I think my fear was that, not that I wouldn't be a good father, but somehow I wouldn't be able to sustain the relationship in a healthy manner in order for the child to grow up in a way that I thought would be better than the way I grew up. And made a very conscious effort not to. I was in relationships. Women were like, "Why aren't we getting married? I want to have your children." I'm not doing that. Uh, I'm not doing that. And they didn't know, right? But you'd be a
Right.
great dad, and you're this, and I just didn't have a belief in myself that I would be really good at it.
Yeah, that is a tough spot to come from. And I talk to so many dads these days, and uh, they get a little bit stuck in, how to be a dad and how to love their kids, or how to be intentional, or how to just be present in the moment, how to just enjoy, what they have and appreciate everything about it. And at times I struggle with that too. Uh,
I think as men, we don't want to fail, right? And sometimes we default to, if I don't do anything, I can't fail. But that is, almost the definition of failure, is not even getting in the game. Um, I can tell you a little story. I play this game with my son when we go to school every day, to daycare with my 3-year-old. There's a red light along the way, and I mean, 99% of the time it's red when we get there, right? It's a really quick green light. And I said, well, who's going to win today? What do you want? Red, green, or yellow? Like, what is it going to be when we come around that corner? And he's like, red. I was like, oh, is daddy ever going to get red? Can I have green? And he'll go, no, you can't have green. I got green too, right? He just wants to win, right? And I said, listen, as long as you're picking a color and you're in the game, you have an opportunity to win, right? Now he wants them all. He's 3, right? I
right,
let him have all
right,
3.
right.
But I just love that he wants to be in the game. And in this game of parenthood, because a number of reasons, in my experience, dads aren't getting in the game. They think showing up and providing a paycheck a lot of times is them being in the game. And I'll share with you, a lot of times someone will ask me at the end, you got one last nugget. I'll give you a nugget at the end of, you know, and ponder this as an audience. Ponder this. How do kids spell love? And
Hmm.
and I'll share with you the answer towards the end.
Got it. I might know it. I might know it. We'll see. We'll see. Oh my gosh. So yeah, guys have so many different, from our upbringing, where we came from and everything, beliefs, limiting beliefs. My dad was really big on providing for the family. That was a core value that was so important to him. And then somewhere along the way, uh, supporting kids' activities was another core thing for him. So he would be at everything, even if it meant waking up. He worked night shift a lot. So he'd wake up, and go to the practice, or,
Yeah.
practice. Allen Iverson, you talking about practice?
Practice.
Yeah, my dad would show up to practice so that he could be there. And he didn't have a lot of those type things as a kid, and so that was like paramount for him. And
And what was the impact on you? Not to turn
yeah,
the
no, yeah. So the impact on me, turns out providing was really important. I had to make money. Got it. Check. Provide the, roof over the head and, all those other things. Two, man, I remember the first time I missed a practice. It was a discussion with me and my wife. Hey, I've got this. Or it may have even been we have two kids and there's two things happening at the same time. Whatever it was, hey, it's very clear in advance that I am not going to be at this event. How's this going to we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
It was the simplest thing. Hey, you're not going to be there. Like, whatever. And, one of my kids like, Dad, but you said you'd always be it. I said, no, I said, I'll be involved and I'll support you and blah, blah, blah. But we had a plan and we executed it. But it was a big, big deal for something that really, truly was not a big deal. It was just
But it's
one little
important to
thing.
you, right? Because you're
Yes.
modeling what your father did. And so many people model what their father did. And sometimes their father did nothing, but
Mm-hmm.
that's all they know.
Exactly. Yeah. One of my best friends, that's his life mission is to be a great dad. And same thing. His dad wasn't around. So what he knew, all the things he'd seen growing up were all super bad behaviors. He's like, I know what not to do, and I'll never do those things. All right, what would you do? I have no idea. And then he decided to flip the script and he says, why can't I, if I'm good at work, if I'm good at school, if I'm good at fitness, if I'm good at all these things, why can't I be good at being a dad too? What did I do there? And he says, I studied, I practiced. So
Modeled
he started
good
doing
dad
that.
behavior.
Yeah, he started studying and figuring it out and surrounding himself with other dads that were great dads. And next thing you know, he's a great dad. Like I get a lot of my inspiration ideas from him. And it's funny to see where he came from to where he is now. And we absolutely can. And just getting involved. I think about systems and I think about, what's missing, what systems can we apply to it to make it better, and
Mm.
just each of the different areas, the kids practices, the going to school. Hey, how can we be involved instead of just sitting in the car? Hey, let's play the stoplight game. Hey, what's the stoplight game, Dad? I don't know, I'm making it up as we go right now. Which is so much about being a dad. Hey, let's just make stuff up on the fly.
And create a tradition of it, right? Because I did it with Christian when he was that age or so. And there's a Citgo, and that's how they learn how to read Citgo or start learning his letters. Like, hey, what are those letters up there? CITG. Oh, great. What's that? So Citgo. Yeah. Like kids don't care. I literally got up like I was Vanna White this morning. My little one likes to watch YouTube Kids, right? He's got his little
Yeah.
routine. He comes down, he settles into his day. We get him a little breakfast and he watches his YouTube Kids. So I turn it on and I was like, so what would you like to watch today, Jaden? Your YouTube Kids is loading right now. Oh, here's the white screen. And he's cracking up. And I said, so here we have Blippi. Blippi's doing the alphabet today. Or would you like? And he's just dying. He's like, Daddy, stop. And he's cracking up. And then he picks one and he's like, Daddy being silly. Daddy, you're so silly. And it's what do you do? You just got to be a dad. I think the best sound in the world is the laughter of my children.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So my goal every day is to make them laugh. So um,
Writing that down. Writing that down. I talked to another dad, and he's like, "My goal is to dance with my kid at least once a day."
I love
Like,
that.
that's great. That's so fun. And fun is something my definition. I aim to have fun with my wife and my kids every day. Whatever it is, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
something goofy, dance, whatever. But let's just figure it out. Last night it happened to be making rubber band bracelets with my daughter. I do not want to make rubber band bracelets with my daughter. But I said, all right, I'll do it. This is the second night you asked. Let's jump in. And turns out it was fun. We had a good time doing it.
There's so many things in life that we resist that if we just let our guard down and allow, uh, it's like going to a wedding. I don't know how you are on those. I'm not a dancer, so it's like, oh, I gotta go
Right.
to a wedding. I gotta socialize with a bunch of people that I may or may not know. I'm gonna sit at a table with a bunch of strangers, but I'm a people person, right? And I call myself an introvert extrovert. Like I don't necessarily want to go, but once I get there, I make the best of it.
Mm-hmm.
And every time without fail, "Oh, we have to go to that event." Yeah. And then we go. And I'm like, hey, she's like, you didn't want to leave. Why are we always the last one to go? Like, well, I was talking to so, and did you meet Dan over here? And did you, hey, Steve? And then his wife. Oh, you two should get together. She's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're exhausting. She wants to go, but I'm she calls me the social butterfly. You'll talk to anybody, anywhere. When I fly, she's like, so who'd you meet on the airplane today? Oh, it's so interesting. The guy was the CEO of a company and he did this and that. My favorite one time I sat next to a marketing director for uh, Ben and Jerry's.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we were sitting up front in the plane, and he was working, and I said something to him, and he goes, and then we just started engaging, and he turned down his laptop and he goes, nobody ever talks to me on a plane. He goes, everyone just thinks I'm too busy and I'm always working. Thank you for the last hour of conversation. He reaches into his briefcase and gives me like 20 free pints of like Ben and Jerry's. I was like, you don't have to do that. He goes, thousands of these things, enjoy it. Because I obviously said, man, I love my chunky monkey, man.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So, he knew I was a lover of the product and we had a good conversation, but, yeah, sorry to digress off the topic.
No, that's great. And staying curious and just being interested in others. And if I can stay away from the topics of football and the weather, and those things are going to show up, but I try to switch the conversation pretty quick because people are interesting and they've got a story, and I love to hear it and love to help them progress on their story in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
So, speaking of stories and speaking of making progress, FBI Dads, like that was the coolest like beginning. And I've seen many times the person that gets thrust into a role. I'm one of those people. I'm a member of that club for sure. But tell us about how this got started for you, and the humble beginnings for you. And
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you a little bit more of the story so that the context for the audience understands is, I didn't want to be a dad. I was going through a rough patch in my life, and literally I vowed I was never going to have kids. I was outside of a relationship at that point, and I wasn't speaking to God at the time. I was just speaking to myself, and I said, listen, you need to get your life back together. I was going through a real rough patch, and I gave myself to January 1st. It was right before Christmas again. It's kind of a
yeah, those New
parallel.
Year's
Yeah,
resolutions never work.
well, and this wasn't even a New Year's resolution. It was just
Just
kind of
happened to
like,
be.
I need to do this. And on December 28th that year. So it was probably December 23rd. On December 28th, I met my wife. Didn't know she was my wife at the time. I wasn't looking for anything, but this woman walked into my life, and almost immediately, I knew that she was the one, and I had never had that feeling before. A few months into our relationship, right? I told you my biggest fear is becoming a father. Wouldn't
Right.
commit to a woman, wouldn't commit to, like, I didn't want to have children because I didn't want to fail in that. My wife had shared with me, prior to us being married, she says, as we're getting serious, she goes, I need to ask you a question. I said, what's that? She says, how do you feel about kids? Deer in the headlights, right?
Oh
Like,
man,
oh
yeah.
man.
I got to go
So
to the
like any
bathroom.
smart man, I said,
I got to
hey, well,
step
how do
away
you
from
feel
this
about kids?
conversation.
No, well, like any smart man, right? And I'm not the smartest guy in the room by any stretch of the imagination, but I was smart enough to say this. Well, how do you feel about having kids? And she says, well, I want you to know, as we're developing feelings for each other, that the doctors told me I had an ovarian cyst at one point that I have less than a 5% chance of ever having children. So if that's
Oh
going to be a challenge
wow.
for you, I just want you to know up front. Dan, I did a fist pump and a backflip because the woman I'm falling in love with is never going to have the ability in my mind to have me face my greatest fear. So what did I do? I proposed not too far from them. I remember on our wedding night, we're by ourselves that evening, and she says, "What are we going to do about this kid thing?" And in my mind, I'm like, "We can't have kids, right?"
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I say, "Listen, let's just have fun. Let's be ourselves. Let's enjoy each other, and whatever happens, happens." And again, I didn't have a relationship with God. Today I was able to let God lead the way. Uh, well, God has a sense of humor, because 6 weeks later we were pregnant.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So
So you
my
really hadn't transitioned that thought process whatsoever. You're not having kids. You hadn't really said,
I just
"Hey,
married the
I'm
woman of my dreams. She works in the airline industry. I worked in the hotel industry at the time. My opening pickup line to her was, "Hey, I overheard you work for the airlines." "Yeah." I said, "I work for the hotels. We should travel together." And we had grandiose plans of travel uh, before, we found out that we were going to become parents. And
Wow.
that happened to be, so our first date was on New Year's Eve
Hmm.
night. We met up somewhere at a late night party. Um, and we actually 2 years later on New Year's Eve found out that we were pregnant.
Wow.
So here I am, like ecstatic because I found the woman of my dreams, actually ecstatic that I'm about to be a dad, but really scared. And I made a vow to myself almost immediately, and you mentioned it earlier in the interview. You said a lot of dads say, "Well, I'm not going to be like my father." And then you said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I define it, and I've written a book about it called "I'm going to be the dad I wish I had." So the title of my book is "Be the Dad You Wish You Had," and to clearly define that. And there's 40 lessons in there and how to interact and engage with your children.
Wow.
So fast
Sounds like a
forward.
great book. I got to read this.
I'll get you a copy.
Awesome.
No worries. Um, so now we get to FBI dads. I'm a couple years into this dad thing. Like your other friend and other dads that you talk to, I'm gonna be highly involved. Off camera or off interview, we were talking about being engaged and what dads do. And my whole thing was I grew up and there was mom worked really hard. Dad wasn't in my life. I played sports and nobody was ever at an event because mom was always working and there was no one else to be there. So never played organized sports until really middle school and high school, but nobody was ever in the stands. So I vowed to myself, I didn't say I'd be at 100% of things as you and I were discussing.
Yeah.
I did say I'd be at 95% of everything because I understand that things happen. And that's my vow to myself. I gave myself a little wiggle room. Um, so when elementary school came around and we were going to this open house and trying to figure out whose teachers were going to be in things, they had this group called, I remember it was a PTA table and they're like, sign up for the PTA. And I'm in the background, right? Like every dad is. And one of the dad, we have a dad's group here. Do you want to sign up to be on the mailing list? And I was like, yeah, you guys got a dad's group here. This is amazing. So I look at the list and it's my wife's pretty efficient and we were one of the first ones there. And this list had like one other email address on it. And I'm like, oh, we're just one of the first ones, right? So I sign up and I can tell you, I sat by my desk waiting for that email to come in and tell me all about this dad's program. And it didn't come in for months.
Oh man.
And when it finally came, they're like, there's going to be a meeting at 6 o'clock in the cafeteria at the school on a Tuesday night. Come out, dads, and learn about the FBI dads program. And I tell you, I showed up to that thing and the parking lot was empty. And I was like,
No.
man. And I'm new to the school, right? So am
Yeah.
I going to the right entrance? Am
Okay.
I doing this? What's going on? And I finally, and a guy comes out and it was the guy who runs it. I didn't know it at the time, but he's like, you're here for the FBI dads? I was like, yeah. Am I in the right place? He goes, this is it.
Me and you.
So I said, so what's going on? He goes, well, there's another guy. He kind of helps me and he's always late. And, if he even shows up, I'd be shocked. He goes, so, let me tell you about the program. I said, aren't we going to wait for the other dads? And he goes, the dads just don't want to get involved.
Oh,
And Dan, I knew that in my heart of hearts that was false because I'm a dad and I want to be involved. So if I know I feel this way, we're just not doing something right. Like maybe send out an email.
when you say
Keep a little
feeling, When you
Yeah.
say you felt that, what was your feeling in that moment? What did you like if whatever your thought was jumped out of your head, what would your instinct reaction have been to that guy? Or maybe you just instinct reaction back to him, but
I don't know if I said anything. I don't think I verbalized anything to him, but immediately my thoughts. I don't know if there's a feeling. Well, I get the feeling is you're wrong. There's no way dads don't want to be involved because I'm a
what
dad.
was the emotion behind that? You're like, you said it, you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm frustrated with you for not fighting. Frustration. Like, what do you mean?
Yes, yes. When I heard
Like,
you tell me that earlier before we started recording, I'm like, I'm ready to like fight.
yeah, like
I'm
what do you
ready
mean?
to take this hill. Like we're not going down this way.
Yeah. As he says that, he basically says, look, the dad's program, we read to the classrooms like 4 times a year. There's 60 classrooms, and there's a good group of dads that show up and do that. And the first one is next week, if you want to come and read to a classroom, we're going to send out a link to sign up. And so the link came out. I knew about it. I was the only guy at the meeting, right? So I was waiting for that email, and I signed up for my son's classroom. And I remember getting there that morning and going, what do you mean the dads don't want to be involved? This whole foyer is full. There's like 40 or 50 dads here. This is great. Went and read to my son's classroom. Really cool experience for me. He was super excited that I was there. People are thanking me. And as I'm about to leave, his name is Shane, who ran it. And he goes, hey, can you read to another classroom? We're short a few dads on a few classrooms. I was like, okay. And he goes, I need a fourth grade classroom down that hallway. And I was, fourth grade? I don't know why. I have a kindergartner, right? I pictured like a 17-year-old kid, and I have this little kindergarten book, right? And I don't know what the book was. And I'm like, these kids don't want to, like, and I'm thinking in my mind, do I need another book? But I don't want to say anything. I'm just going to go. And if I bomb, I bomb. And I go and I sit down in this fourth grade classroom, and the teacher introduces me, and the kids are a lot more attentive, and the kids are really engaged. And I say, are you familiar with this book? Thinking that the kids are going to be like, yeah, that's for kids. Why are you going to read that book to me? And they're like, that's my favorite book. You're going to read that to us? And so as I start reading the book and I show it, I naturally just start stopping, and I go, will you kids read with me? And they start finishing the line. Let's just say it was a Dr. Seuss book. So I'd read a line, and in unison, they start reading it back. And I start doing it. And I walked out of there and I go, that was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had, because I was nervous. And I went in there to try and, like, I'm just going to read. And they made me feel comfortable, and they made it engaging, and they made it fun. And I realized that, a fifth grader, a fourth grader, these elementary school kids, although I see them in the hallway and are a little bit taller than my son at that point, they're really just kids, and they just want attention. And I tell dads that story all the time when they're like, oh, I want to read in my son's class. I'm like, I encourage you to go to another classroom and see something different. And I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And time again, they come out and they're like, wow, that was amazing. So let me tell you a little bit more of that story, though. That year later on, the second reader day, about 10 dads showed up. By reader day 3, 7 dads showed up. By the fourth one, there was 5 of us. I read to
Oh
10
no.
classrooms that day. And I said, I will never have to read to a classroom ever again, because I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to do this. So I went to the principal the next year and I said, can we do a breakfast portion so we're not standing in the foyer? And, I'll try and get a sponsor. And, I, you know, Krispy Kreme has been generous and really sponsored this whole thing. They provide donuts. At this point, I literally just dropped donuts as we're in COVID right now. I literally just dropped off 20 dozen donuts to the school for some of the classrooms and all the staff as they won a prize. But I was like, Krispy hasn't been able to donate this year because we're not doing it in person. We've been doing
Right.
it virtually, but so they've been amazing. And he says, yeah, how often do you want to do it? And I was like, oh, I don't really want to do it. He goes, well, you're bringing it to me. If it's going to get implemented, you're going to do it. And the first time I did a dad's breakfast, 6 dads showed up. And I remember being on stage and thinking to myself, man, why do these dads not want to do this? I like, and for the 6 that were there, and you got to focus on who's there. It was amazing. There, thank you for doing this. But then I actually had a surgery, and I told Shane, I said, Shane, you're gonna have to do the next breakfast. Like, I have the presentation, I have everything. We'll do this, but you have to do it because I'm having ankle surgery the day before this, and I know I'm not going to be in a position to be on stage. So he contacts me, asks me how my surgery went. And I said, it went fine. How did the breakfast go? He goes, there's like 60 dads who showed up. I was like, what? And I wasn't there. And he goes, yeah, the principal really promoted it. And as they came through the line, he wanted to get to know all the dads. And he had his admin team scooping out breakfast. And this is before Krispy Kreme, right? And he goes, it was great. I said, well, how'd the presentation go? He goes, oh, I don't speak. You have a 1-minute video that you usually do in your presentation. I just looped that thing and just kept playing it. And I'm like, that's not going to get them to come back, right? Instinctually, I'm like, no, it's about the engagement, the interaction. And I'm like, okay. So that year, I think we averaged about 25 dads for the rest of the breakfasts. And then I decided to become PTA president or join the PTA board. I was vice president the first year, became president, but I really got to understand the workings, the communication in the school. And that next year, I got the sponsor of Krispy Kreme, and we averaged that year per breakfast 88 dads coming to each and every breakfast on average. Last year, that grew to 155 dads per breakfast. And wow. Overall, a list of 400 fathers who are on the list. And everyone who was on the list, because I tracked the data, every one of them showed up to at least one breakfast.
Wow. Oh, that gives me chills. That is so awesome.
So I get really passionate about this. Sometimes I forget the details and things, but I tell you, so my pitch, can I tell you what I say to the dads?
Yeah, because please.
So the dads, because we're dads, and I'm going to encourage dads who are listening to this, and even moms, like, just think about the psychology of this. We know work is important, right? We're dads, we're providers, we know work's important. But I'll tell you what, our kids know that work's important. You want to know why? Because we use it as an excuse all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dad's got to do this for work. Well, I got to go to work. I got to finish up. I got to do this paperwork for work. And kids are always just, hey, Dad, can I get 10 minutes of your time? Yeah, when I'm finished with work. I would encourage you, and I'm speaking to myself here too, as I'm talking to the audience, this is something I need to work on myself. Is work needs to be, it's important, but they don't need to know it's more important than them. Right. Mm-hmm. So try to take it out of your vocabulary as best you can. So I'll get to an open house, and, the dads will come by the table at this point, because now it's, I got signs and I have stuff, and people know to go to the FBI dad's table. Like, everybody directs to the FBI dad's table in the school. Like, your dad, you need to go over there and talk to Ryan. And I'll get there and I'll say, hey, dads, what we do is we do 6 breakfasts a year. We do some beautification days, and then we also read to the classrooms. And the dads will go, yeah, I'm really busy. I work. And I said, well, I work too. I run a business, and I have a podcast, and I have this, and I have that, and I have this, and I run this program. And I show up to every single one of them. So I work too. I'm a guy. I relate to you. But what I'm going to ask for you is 3 hours of your time this year. Can you do 3 hours all year? And I'm going to tell you what it looks like. I'm going to ask you to show up to 1 or 2 of these breakfasts. And trust me, if you show up to 1, you're going to show up to all of them if you can. That's a half hour in the morning. I'm going to ask you and encourage you to read one of the reader days, because there's 6 breakfasts, but only 3 reader days. I said that's going to add 15 minutes onto one of those breakfasts. So we're at 45 minutes, Dad. And then I'm going to encourage you to donate 1 time, 1 hour, when we do a school beautification day. But we're going to drop pine straw. You could bring your power tools and pressure wash the playground. We're going to do what guys do. We're going to make this thing look awesome, and we're going to play with some tools while we do it. I said, can you do that? And when I put it to them like that, they're like, well, I can do that. So, well, great. Then sign up on the list, and you'll get emails from me, and you pick the times that you want to do it. But I encourage you to do that, because your kids want to know, because I know your work's important. But you know what? School's important, and school is your kids' work. So when you show up to your kids' work,
Hmm.
They know, and you show up to work late potentially, you're saying on that day, your work is more important than mine, and they'll
Hmm.
appreciate it.
That is so good. My kids go crazy whenever I show up to something like that, and the other dads or moms or whatever aren't around. They even love to go to my work.
Yeah.
Like, hey, two kids, hey, one of you can come. One's manageable, two sometimes gets nuts.
Especially when they're
And
fighting, right? Well, I have
yeah,
two boys.
that's what happens. Yeah. And one of them, I'm like, all right, this time you, next time you. But one of them comes and it's just such a special one-on-one time. I get some work done and also get some play and some bonding. And the people at the office, who wouldn't love having a little kid hanging out that's well behaved, but smiling and
Yeah.
energetic and pretending like they're working too. Dad, I'll help you work.
Okay.
They
Here,
they
fill out this
love
paperwork.
they love the scanner.
Yeah.
Anything to scan?
Just don't sit on it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what are some like core value type things with FBI dads? Things in the presentations or things that are important or things that the guys are taking away and resonating with?
Yeah, so absolutely. I love that question. One of the things we do at every FBI Dad's breakfast, after I introduce and get the crowd really riled up, the first thing I do before we get into the lesson, just so you know, it's a simple lesson of integrity or sportsmanship or community, right? We'll define that. I'll ask the kids what that means. They'll, shout it out, we call it. Once they shout that out, I'll actually define it. There's usually a Disney video or something that'll go along with the presentation so that they can see that in action. Once they see that in action, they will, I know, give me 1 second, Dan, babe, I'm in an interview. I got you. She's worried about, you're going to have to edit that out. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
man. She's like, you have a 9:30 appointment. I'm like, I'll get there. Uh, just checking my calendar. Um, Let me
yeah.
gather
So
myself.
so core values. We're doing some
So core
Disney
values.
videos.
Once
Yeah.
we do the lesson, but before the lesson, what we do is I have them face to face with their kid and sometimes children. I tell them to get at eye level and eye to eye,
Yeah.
and I say to them, I want you to finish this sentence for your child. I am proud of you because, and dads, go. Beautiful thing about that is you see these kids' faces light up. You see the dads see the kids' face light up. And I think it's a moment where they don't always fully understand that those moments, those proud moments, mean so much to the kids. Um, and I actually have implemented a process where at that point I say, this is my favorite part of the whole thing. Dads, this is a great moment for you and your kids. You don't realize it now, but you'll realize it, 10, 15 years down the road. Do yourself a favor, pull out your phones, you all have them, and capture this moment because there's a big, beautiful smile on your
Mm.
kid's face, and take a selfie. What I have them do is actually email those to me. I have them printed out. We have a huge bulletin board at the school of all of those pictures that those dads take. And oftentimes I have sheets or chits of paper out that say, um, I'm proud of you for. And then I ask the dads to write that out. I have pens and things out, and those also go up on the bulletin board. And the kids walk by and are like, look what my dad said about me. Look at that picture of my dad. And they're really proud that their dad came.
Mm. That is so fun. So connecting. Oh man, I'm digging it. I'm ready to go right now.
I'm ready to invite you. Hey, I might invite you to the next one. We have one more this year and we're doing it virtually. And I could send you a link if you'd like to come
Oh,
and
that would
join
be
with your
cool.
kids.
Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be cool. That would be cool. What maybe we can drop that link in the Facebook page and invite 400 other dads.
Hey, let's do it. I'm all for it.
Cool. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. Um, what is earlier you mentioned how do kids spell love? So let's catch that.
So you said you may know it. I just like to hear your take on it, and then I'll tell you
Yeah, I've
the answer.
I've always heard how kids spell love is Time.
I love it, and you have it. And I saw it years ago on a meme on Facebook somewhere, and I was like, it's so true. And you know, when I think back of my early days, right? And even though my mom worked a lot, she always took time. And I remember those conversations. I remember that intentionality in those moments that she gave me. And I don't look back and I don't, you know, I can't tell you one of those presents that actually showed up that year underneath that Christmas tree when my father abandoned me. Uh, I remember a bike or two.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was big into He-Man, so I had a bunch of He-Man stuff. But outside of a few of those moments, and I had stuff, what really resonates with me with my childhood is the time I had with my mom. And you know, I wish I could have had more. And I
Mm-hmm.
think every dad and mom alike, if they really look back in their childhood and they think about memories, they think about the holidays, they think about the birthday parties, they think about these moments where you got engagement and time with your parents. So with FBI dads, you know, I'm only asking for 3 hours a year max. And but those 3 hours, because they're so intentional, create
Yes.
lasting memories for a lifetime. And we were talking earlier about we mimic what our parents did. My goal is this isn't for this generation. I look forward to all those kids that are going to FBI dads breakfast now, that when they show up in elementary school, they go, where's the FBI dads program? And if there's not a dads program, they say, well, we need to get one, and I'm ready to lead it because I know the impact it had on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you feel like you're missing something, other dads to connect with and groups and, more meaningful things, which almost every guy I talk to says that they're missing that in their life. They're busy with their kids, they're busy with work. I'm like, just put something together, get involved with something, listen to podcasts, get involved in a community group and create some in-person stuff. There's some workout groups, some dad stuff. You mentioned getting the tools out and doing something. It's like, we, all of us guys want to connect and want to be around other men doing something as opposed to, and watching the game is cool, and even a lot of dads miss out on that, but by being proactive with it, we can we can connect and develop these better friendships and have kind of a community of people raising our kids, so we're helping another family and other families helping us, and life's so much better that way.
You know, and as you say that, when we do the beautification days, Dan, it is it always shocks me because I lead it, I organize it. I'm usually the guy on the golf cart, like making sure everybody has everything they need and
Yeah.
directing, like, hey, we need you over here and that. So I get to touch and I'll drop waters off if it's around summertime, when school's closing or reopening, and almost without fail, every dad's like, man, thanks for putting this together. This was a lot of fun. I really feel like I contributed to the school, right? We want to.
Hmm.
And so many times, unfortunately, PTAs and, hey, we need money. We need
Hmm.
money. And I don't know about you, but I remember when I first got there, I just felt like an ATM. Like every
ATM.
week,
Yep.
I felt like but when I asked them to just give a little bit of time and have an engagement and have a donut with your kids, they're like, well, how much is it? And it's free. And they're
Yeah.
like, nothing. Yeah. But the power of reciprocity. So when I do ask for something, they show up in droves because we've already poured into them and they're ready to pour back. Last year, I'll give you one last story. I gotta go. Last year we had a daddy daughter dance, and it's after the last. It was after the fifth FBI dad's breakfast. We had 500 attendees. That was dads and girls, right? So
Right.
it's
Right.
250 dads, give or take a couple, right? Because some have two girls. And they're, oh my gosh, I can't believe the attendance we had on this year. And I chuckled in the back. I said, these dads have been to the school 5 times already. They feel a part of the team. So when mom says, hey, there's a daddy daughter dance, they're like, when is it?
Yeah.
I'm going. But if they don't have that engagement, right, 5 times previous, do I have to go? Where do I go? I don't know the school. I don't know where to park. We'll come up with all these excuses because we don't feel comfortable. So we make it comfortable and engaging for the dads to be at the school in
Hmm.
multiple ways where they didn't have to reach into their pocket. Daddy daughter dance? That sounds like fun. Every time I go to the school, I have fun. So let's go to this too.
Yeah, absolutely. So fathers being involved,
That's it. FBI
What's
dads,
better than
fathers
that?
being. You know, if you ask my principal, she absolutely loves it because she calls me for all kinds of goodies. You know, I could tell stories all day long. You know, during COVID, summer was hitting. We weren't going to open the schools. Didn't know if they're opening or closing. We did open. Some people are virtual. Some people are in the school, but they needed sanitation stations. And my principal said, Ryan, I priced these out. They're $500 a piece, and I need 10.
Ooh.
But I found this thing on, Pinterest, and could you build these with the FBI dads?
Huh.
The materials will cost me, and it's just the Purell pump thing, right? Is
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
that costs $60.
Right.
But the materials, which was a 5-gallon bucket, a post, and some cement, was like $12. So we got together, a group of us dads, and built these sanitation stations, cost about $75 each. So we built 10 of them. So $750, we saved the school $4,250 and had a great time doing it, doing what guys do, building stuff and dumping cement and getting messy.
That's awesome.
And she's like, well, when can you do it? I was like, when you need it done? I'd like it done by this date. And it was done a week earlier. And she's like, I love that I just call you and it gets done. And I was like, I love that when I send something out like that, a bunch of dads are like, well, I better get to mix the cement. Like we're all competing for the job to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's a real blessing to the school. It's a blessing to the dads, right? Because they get to be involved.
Yeah.
And this year, Reader Day for Black History Month, I had dads record videos. So a whole bunch of dads recorded videos and they're reading to the classrooms from Black authors for Black History Month. And now I'm getting moms saying, well, how come my husband didn't read? I was like, get him to read, send me the video. I'll edit it out, put the intro, the outro,
Yeah.
and I'll send it over to the teachers. And now I have just out of the woodworks, like, more and more videos of dads reading and the kids are loving it. So there's just so many positive, and statistics prove when there's a positive male role model in the school, even if it's a police officer or a male teacher, it positively affects the kids. So when you have 200 positive male role models walking through the school multiple times a year, the test scores have gone up at our school, the camaraderie, the community, everything has been in a positive way. So I just love the program and I want to get it into more schools.
We'll throw the links into the show notes and everything for the podcast. And we always like to finish out with a challenge. Have you got a challenge that you could come up with and throw out to the guys listening?
Oh man, challenge. Yeah. Well, so I'm going to challenge each and every single dad to do what I do at a dad's breakfast. I want you to take some time today, not tomorrow, not next week. I want you to take action today and think of it, in dialogue where you're picking up your kids or you're at the dinner table and having dialogue and they're sharing their day. Just pick up those nuggets. And when you put them down to bed tonight, I want you to say, I'm proud of you because, so that they could rest their head on that pillow and be like, wow, dad's proud of me. And they're going to rest so well that night. And they're going to wake up in the morning. They're going to be ready to attack their day, whatever it looks like, whether it's going to school or pre-K or whatever that looks like. They're going to know that you're proud of them and they're going to want to please you again. And then I encourage you to do it each and every day after that.
That is so good. And kids just light up and respond to that.
Can I share one last thought? Because
Yes,
I want to
yeah.
I want to direct. I created
Yes.
something that I think is so important, and it's 4 things. I call it the Dad Daily 4, and I want to
Okay.
share it with your audience. It's a
Yeah,
free
please do.
download, and I shared one of the Dad's Daily 4 with you. And it takes 4 minutes to do this, dads. We're all strapped for time, but if you do this consistently and it becomes a part of your routine, you'll find it will connect you to your kid in ways that you never knew. So tell them these 4 things every day in your words and actions. I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I am proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust you. And on that download, those are 4 simple things. There's a cutout where you could put it right on your refrigerator to remind you. And then there's a number of doctors who give their testimony or their research as to why those things are so important so that you understand the psychology. I'm not a doctor, but I listen to the doctors and the psychologists, and I know it has worked wonders for me with my kids. And I want it to work wonders for you.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll shoot you a link for the legacy letter too, Ryan. In that, it's got love you, proud of you, believe in you. So
Yeah.
like right in line with the stuff we've been doing inside the community. And I'll be glad to shoot that over to you as well. And I'm
And
excited
you
to get
could
your download.
and you could get that at fbidads.com/Dan.
There we go.
Make it
Awesome.
easy. That's where you'll get it. Serious. That's where it's at.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we appreciate your time so much. This has been so enjoyable. Look forward to having you back and looking forward to seeing guys connect with their kids at a higher level because of this podcast. So, and because of you. So
Yes.
thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, my friend.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.